What? Alright, settle down there, cowboy. Alright, hello. So my name is Eleanor and this is my video about fibroids. Essentially, I am now, so what's today, Monday, Tuesday I had an operation to remove the fibroids through open myomectomy. And there's different ways to do it, and I guess I'll sort of talk about those things. I just sort of want to start off with, I'm not a professional, I'm not a medical professional, you know, I'm literally going to sort of give you definitions based on my research and what I experienced as symptoms. I noticed that, you know, like when I was, you know, when it was discovered that I had them, I had no idea what they were. And, you know, recalling back in high school, it wasn't taught to us. So, you know, it's been a bit of a journey, and there's a lot of grown women my age, and I'm 31, that don't know what they are, let alone what the symptoms are, when to go to the doctor about it, will the doctor take you seriously, can we trust our you know, medical professionals in that field, and who do we go to, and you know, when you Google these symptoms, you know what comes up, it's always cancer. And like, that's not helpful either. So really this is just more a raw video about, you know, what I experienced, and you know, I hope it finds some benefit to you. I hope that you get something out of it. This is, you know, like just me in the flesh. I don't put makeup on, I'm not, you know, this is just me talking to you about my experiences. So we'll get started. So what is a fibroid? So fibroids are non-cancerous growths in the uterus that can develop during a woman's childbearing years. So again, I'm 31. I don't know how long mine had been growing for. I don't know when. You know, the symptoms, in which I'll get into symptoms, because I'll kind of break down my story through about symptoms and my treatment. So I guess generally speaking, you know, I would always say to my colleagues and my friends that, you know, I'm so bloated, really bloated. I had trouble going to the toilet, and I just was really painfully bloated, and it just got worse, or it would, you know, I'd get my period and then it would go. And so I'm like, okay, well, I just ate too much, because that's what I do, I eat a lot, and who doesn't? So, you know, gluttony is definitely a common trait amongst people. I guess the real thing for me was that, you know, I sensed something was wrong, but I just, me being me, I always just push things at the back of my mind. So I deal with pain in the wrong way, and it's not how you should deal with it at all. Don't ignore things. Make sure you know, like, you don't want it to be chronic, and you don't want it to get to the point where it got to for me, and what I had to deal with, you know, in order to just get them out. They are treatable. You know, it's obviously something that you need to go to the doctor for, the gynecologist, and get professional advice. If the, you know, if it would require perhaps internal ultrasound. I don't know if there's blood tests that they can do. So, you know, it's really just talking to your professional to make sure that, and we'll get into symptoms, if they are what you're experiencing, just make sure that, you know, you get it diagnosed, because you don't want it to be either chronic, or you don't want it to be, you know, stopping your life. And I didn't realize how much it really hindered my well-being, my concentration, my just overall well-being, just feeling bloated all the time. So I guess that's probably where we would segue into symptoms. So I experienced, as I mentioned before, lots of bloating. I've always dealt with back pain, so that wasn't new to me. I've always dealt with bad period pains, so that wasn't new to me. I've always dealt with, it's not really heavy periods, so I'd get like my periods, like they'd be 4 to 7 days, but the 4 to 7 day was really just not that heavy. It was just kind of like, would you go already, because you're not doing anything. So really the pain areas are sort of like around your pelvis, abdomen, lower back. If you have any abnormal menstruation, heavy, irregular, painful, spotting in between, cramping. So the reason why I found out was I had really bad abdominal cramping. And I put a lot of pain behind me, so I just kind of went to work and I was just like, okay, this is really bad. So I had to lean back because the cramping was so bad, like I couldn't breathe. I was struggling to breathe. I shouldn't say I couldn't because it's dramatic, but I was struggling to breathe. It got to the point at lunch I couldn't even eat food, and as I said to you, about 5 minutes ago, it didn't take me long to tell you that I do love food. So, and it was Korean food as well, which is like my favorite, so that was odd. I started to kind of get a little bit panicky, so I messaged my mum, and she said it sounds like gallbladder, so gallstones or gallbladder issues, so that I should just go to the emergency room and just get it dealt with right now. So of course, like, anxiety starts kicking in. I'm like trying not to make a scene. I'm trying to exit really quietly from this lunch. And my colleague just sort of asked me, what's going on, and then I just started like crying. I'm like, I need to go to emergency, like I have to go. And then so my colleague and she kindly took me to emergency, and wheeled me around, which was so embarrassing, but apparently she enjoyed it. I don't know. Thank you, CP. And yeah, so I ended up being in emergency, and they just did a bunch of, they felt my stomach. And so this is July, mind you. I'll give you a bit of a time frame. This all started around January, where I felt like something wasn't quite right, but the symptoms would come and go. So I'd be good, then maybe for a few weeks I'd be really terrible. I'd be like, oh my god, I am going to explode. And so I'd have like IBS sort of symptoms, so I'd take some natural herbal sort of medicine, and that actually relieved it. And I was thinking like, okay, it's me, it's what I'm eating, it's everything that I'm doing. So I started to like try to eat healthier, and it just, progressively though, by June, July, it was becoming more frequent, and it got to the point where then I end up in emergency. So they did a bunch of tests, and they just, they felt my stomach. They're like, are you pregnant? I'm like, hell no. And asked me about 3 times, and I was like, again, not a chance. So they did an ultrasound, and the guy was sort of, going around, a lot of pain, and he found something, and he was like, oh, okay, that's unusual. There's something there. I'm not sure what it is, but I can see something in around the uterus. And I was like, oh my god. Ow. My worst fear has arrived. So my mind's running, of course, anxiety just through the roof, thinking it's like cancer, I'm done for. And so they ended up doing CT scan as well, and they noticed that there was multiple growths and that the lymph nodes were enlarged. So of course they wanted to do blood tests just to rule out anything, you know, tumour markers or anything cancerous. So they did all that. Next day I went back and they told me that it was fibroids. Ta-da! Not cancer. These are non-cancerous tumours, mind you. So don't, you know, think that this is not serious. This is serious. You need to, if they are growing, you know, you need to be aware of them and take care of it, because it can, or even if they're not growing, just be aware of them. Anything that's happening with, you know, anything to do with your ovaries, you know, uterus. People talk all the time about cystic ovaries, and you know, it's like a really common thing. Like you would know, you know, I know friends that have it. It's not uncommon, but the thing we need to realize is it's not also uncommon for women to have fibroids. It's just uncommon for them to grow. Mine grew at an exponential rate. When I first got them diagnosed, they weren't really too sure about the size of it, so they had to book me in for an internal. It was actually at that point that because I went through private stupidly and I don't have enough level of health insurance to cover that, and this is another thing, make sure you have enough health insurance. Like I need to review that when I get into that headspace, and that's on the to-do list, to make sure that I'm covered and to make sure that, you know, down the track I've got everything catered to in regards to female health and general health overall. So anyway, so with that, I then checked out from there, and I was just kind of like, I'm not going to go down the private route, and then went to the Royal Women's Hospital, and they were fantastic. I just went into emergency because I started to get the symptoms again, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to recheck myself into emergency just to make sure that what I've been diagnosed with and get a second opinion on this. So as well as going the public route. They could have referred me to, you know, other public hospitals, but I don't have a car, and you know, I live Bayside, so for me to go from Bayside to, like, you know, Monash or thing, it's just from work as well, when I need follow-up appointments, was just really impossible. So for me to go to the women's and go from there and, you know, have follow-up appointments with work, etc., it's just closer to work, so it was just easier for me to do that on, you know, less stressful. So anyway, they got the files transferred over from the other hospital, and then they, you know, basically booked me in for internal ultrasound. They did the internal ultrasound. They actually really couldn't determine anything. There was something blocking. They couldn't determine if it was the uterus that was enlarged, and mind you, it was up to like my rib cage. And they couldn't determine if it was the uterus that was enlarged or if it was the fibroid, you know, like where was it exactly. So that was still unknown, and I guess too how many was still unknown. It wasn't really clear from the internal, and they had to really sort of do a lot of in there to really sort of try and determine, but it was still not clear. So I then had to go back and do an MRI so that they could get a better picture, and so I just gotta move. So they then did an MRI, and by this time the symptoms were just, you know, I was on pantoprazole to stop the acid, so it felt, you know, better and less painful. But then I was also, they put me on this drug called Esmia. Now Esmia stops hormones, basically. It's like a hormone suppressant. So they did that, and they said we need to try this for 3 months. So hopefully what it does is shrink the fibroid. We get it smaller so that if we need to operate, because, you know, hopefully then it's gone, you know, or if we do need to operate, then there's less chance of massive blood loss, because it was so big at this stage from July to now September. It was now about 23 centimeters long and wide. It was about 16 centimeters wide. So any chance of me having a normal bikini line myomectomy, out the picture, because the bikini line is 13 centimeters wide. That's the maximum they can go. So I was going to always have to be vertical open myomectomy, so lateral, whatever they call it, sorry. So I tried this drug for like 3 months, and you know, it was on this drug, it was hormone suppressant. It was actually kind of amazing because my mind was like really clear and I didn't have these dips of like hormonal imbalances once a month, and it was really cool. But in saying that, when I came off the drug, and I guess this is something to be really mindful of, and I wasn't really told about it as a side effect of coming off this, that I would be really depressed, and I've never really felt depression like that. I've gone through depression, I think, but you know, it's never been on that level. And I wasn't working full-time when I was depressed. I was, you know, a student. I was like 19. So, you know, like dealing with full-time work and then being really depressed, like it got a bit too much. And thankfully I've got like amazing support at work, you know, so my boss really picked up on that, and he was just like, what the hell is going on with you, you know? And I was just like crying, and I'm not emotional. So he was just like, whoa, this is nuts. Like, you know, it was just nuts for me. So just be really mindful of that when they, you know, bring up something about whatever drugs, and it can be different for everyone, obviously. You know, this is just something that I experienced. I'm not saying that this is what it does, but it is just something that I experienced. So just something to keep in there. So yeah, so after that 3 months, had my post hormone suppressant MRI done, and then they you know, come back, talk about it. They then like, listen, did nothing, kind of. I will say though that, you know, the feeling that I had was fantastic, because I did feel like it had shrunk, whatever it was, whether it was the uterus or whether it was the fibroid. I felt like it had shrunken. At the time I thought it was the uterus, because it was basically up to like my rib cage, you know, like I looked pregnant, and I looked like in my, you know, third or final term pregnant. Like it was just nuts. Not like that pregnant, but like it was there, it was visible. I might actually put up photos so you guys can see exactly what I was dealing with just before the surgery, and this is before I took the this is after I took the Esmia. So the bloating wasn't as bad, but you know, as soon as I went off that, give it 2 weeks, I was back where I was, and I could feel it just growing. You know, it was insane. At the pace that this was growing was actually nuts. So MRI done, they said that it was about 25 centimeters, 24 centimeters, and still, you know, wider than what they could do for a bikini line myomectomy. So they're booking in surgery for me at this point, to have an open myomectomy. Now, open myomectomy is essentially an incision cut vertically down, get you open, get the uterus out, get the fibroids out, stitch everything back up, and then it's like, you know, 2 weeks of hell, because like right now my nerves are just like starting to like wake up around the stitches. So they're like, hey, this is fun, let's give you really uncomfortable pain, let's wreak havoc, it's great. And so that's happening right now. I'm trying to just keep walking so that, you know, all the bowels and everything, like, it's just moving. I'm trying to keep my mind active. This is why I'm doing this video, because I just need to like, I've noticed with the recovery that, you know, if I'm like bored, I'm going to sit there and I'll just like emotionally eat, and I don't want to do that. And I just want to like steer clear from food and just be mindful of where I'm at right now in recovery, emotionally as well. So not just physically, but it's really important to be mindful and, you know, deal with things in the present. Don't, you know, obviously everyone deals different, and that's okay, but, you know, don't let it get you down, because every day is going to be different. every day I wake up, you know, I don't know what to expect. So that's fine. I've got painkillers. I've got things to help me. You know, talk to your professional. Don't just think like you're doing this alone. I'm very fortunate that I have amazing friends and family around me that check in. So they check in on my mental health and they check in with me constantly. And that's really amazing, and I'm very lucky. So if you don't sort of have that, someone that you can talk to, you know, use the comments below, you know, like, so yeah, so operation happened Tuesday. So treatments, in terms of like treatments, there is, you know, supportive care. So you can have like ongoing care where it's just like, you know, they don't grow. We know they're there, and we'll help you manage the side effects that come with them, but we'll just keep an eye on it just to make sure. And this is why it's really important to keep an eye on them, because like they could grow. Never say never. Obviously with pregnancy, you know, it can be a huge risk being pregnant and having fibroids. Don't you know, make sure you get everything checked out before you want to start having children, and really think about, you know, your overall health female wise, what that means, and overall the holistic picture. Make sure you get regular pap smears, regular checkups. Like, this is really serious, you know, and it's just like, it blows my mind that I didn't know about this in high school growing up. I had no idea. It's not even in my family to have fibroids. So like, how would my mum teach me this, you know? Like, she kind of taught me like, you know, okay, now you've got your period, now we're getting into female land. And you know, obviously everyone, you know, experiences being female differently. That was, for me, my experience growing up. So anyway, you know, there is lots of different things that you can do to manage the fibroids, but it's just important to know that there is help out there and you can be diagnosed. Don't just put up with period pain. Don't just put up with back pain. Don't, you know, like, pain is not life. And that's what I was taught, like, not taught, but I just kind of like, that's my mindset. My subconscious is put up with pain and just deal with it, because that's what I saw growing up. But this is, you know, when I say like this is so serious, just please, I cannot stress enough to just like, if you feel like something's wrong, just go talk to someone about it. If you are anxious, if you think late at night thinking, fuck, like, what if, excuse my language, but what if you have some, what if you have something, what if it's this, you know, don't question it. Just go get it sorted. Just, you know, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but I can tell you now, like, I've learnt my lesson, and it's stupid that it took this to happen for me to change my mindset and just be like, my health comes first in all scenarios and act like corners of life. That's number one. So I guess, you know, I think the thing is right now I'm healing from the surgery, and they said that it can take 2 weeks post-surgery to kind of, you know, 2 to 3 weeks to just kind of like, you know, I've got to get the stitches out, I've got to go back, get follow-ups, do all that, and then 4 weeks I go back post-operative checkup back at the hospital, and then I sort of have a reassessment there of, you know, how I am to get back to work, what's my health situation like in order to get back into work so that I can get my mind active again, what I need, you know, and work's really great in that aspect. So, you know, you've seen those ads, back to work. So make sure that your employer is really supportive of that, and luckily I'm very fortunate that mine is. They don't play around with your health. Make sure you get that sorted. And I guess, you know, right now it's just recovery for me. So I think, you know, for me right now, I'm not really sure if, you know, if you're watching this and you've dealt with this, like, what's your experience been like? What have you had to go through in order to find out that you had fibroids? You know, if you relate to this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe. You know, I kind of want to talk through this journey, how I'm dealing with it. I, you know, would really be helpful if anyone has anything that they can offer in terms of recovery. If you sort of had the open lateral myomectomy, what's your recovery been like? How have you dealt with everything? You know, what have you had to do differently? I'm obviously quite mindful of when I'm doing day-to-day things. When I'm sitting down, I'm using my arms a lot, you know, I'm using my legs and my arms, not my core like I normally do. I really depend on, anyone does depend on their core, so it's really just be mindful of that, and don't overdo it. Take it really slow. I'm like, I have to get things done, you know, ASAP. I'm like, what next, you know, and I just go. And I do it, I ride my bicycle to work, you know, I'm like always moving, this and that. And so for me, this was like a big, like, you know, and yesterday I kind of felt it, because I was just, you know, like I'm watching a movie, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, oh my God, like what am I gonna do? Do I eat? What do I do? So I started drawing, and I started thinking, I had this like really weird dream, and I was like, that's actually a really cool story to start. So I'm like kind of working on this like sci-fi situation here, which is, I love science, I love space, so why not just, you know, the ability to learn more about it, but then write about it as well. So that's more fiction than anything. So anyway, don't get too excited. That just could be just something that I do in the next 2 weeks and then change my mind on. But anyway, I guess it's, yeah, just really like for you guys, any of you watching, like how did you deal with it? What did you experience? What were your symptoms? How did you get treatment? Who did you talk to? How many times did you have to go back to the doctor and be like, no, seriously, something is wrong, please help me? Because I've watched videos out there of women that struggle to get taken seriously about their health, and doctors kind of just go, just put up with it. Do you realize, like, I cannot stress enough to you how much women know how to deal with pain. We have such high pain tolerance, it's incredible. There's just an ability to talk though through that pain. It's not like a complaining thing, it's just like this is what I'm feeling, what is it? And you know, to my detriment though, I didn't seek professional advice, and I should have. So if you're watching this because you're searching and Googling and whatever, and that gut instinct in you is saying, I should talk to someone, then go talk to someone about it. Make sure you get it checked. Do not, you know, second guess yourself. Don't second guess your instincts for any minute, any second. So I hope that this video helps. It's very long, I realize, because I'm not gonna edit. As I said, this is really just raw. Just get it out there, and my first video, woohoo. And yeah, like let me know what you want to know more about in terms of what I discussed, whether it was my symptoms, whether it was my treatment, my operation, because there was a lot to do with the operation that I went through with that in terms of like, you know, physically and etc. But I don't really feel like I need to go into too much detail. It's more about what I had done. You know, but if you want to know more about that, let me know. Put in the comments below what your experience was, how you felt through the whole process. And yeah, thanks for watching. Even if it gets one view and it helps you, that's all I could really sort of ask for. And in the same token, this is helping me vent and helping me sort of on the road to recovery. So thanks for watching. Bye.